So once the colder weather hits, most guys put their boats away for the winter and don't get them back out until that weather starts to warm up. But for the few brave souls that still are brave enough to take their boats out on the water, some of the most amazing action of the entire year is waiting for them. However, launching your boat this time of year can be a dangerous task. Just running your stuff alone can be dangerous with the cold weather, as it wreaks havoc on a lot of our gear. In this video, I break down all of my tips to help keep your stuff safe and how to help get you on and off the water as easily and as safely as possible. So winter fishing is some of my absolute favorite fishing of the entire year, specifically because I don't have to fight any crowds and fish group up like crazy. Once you find those areas where those fish are at, it is lights out for the entire time you're out there on the water. But it scares me getting on the water and getting off the water, because there's nothing that tests your gear more than cold weather. Whether it be ice at the ramps or whether it be the cold weather wreaking havoc on your batteries, on all your trolling motor, and just all your equipment in general. From going out time and time again in these cold conditions, I've learned a few things that I like to do to make sure that I don't dump my boat on the ramp, my batteries work as good as they're supposed to, and my truck stays on solid ground instead of in the water. So we're gonna start this video off by walking step by step how I make sure that I keep all of my gear in tip-top shape from when I leave the garage to when I put the boat on the water, and how I get it back out of the water. Now, the first thing that I get concerned with is my batteries. When we have cold weather, and I'm talking 20 degrees, 10 degrees, anywhere in that below 35-degree weather, I like to make sure my batteries are in tip-top shape. And the way that I do this is making sure they are plugged in every single night. Now, I don't care if you just drove somewhere and your batteries were plugged in the entire time before you got there. If you get where you're going and you have time, make sure your batteries are plugged in, because what this is going to do is this is going to keep them warm and keep them charged, because cold weather will suck the life out of your batteries, especially if your batteries sit for an extended period of time below 32 degrees. It can really wreak havoc on them if you don't have them plugged in. So I always try to keep my batteries as plugged in as long as physically possible before I get out there on the water. So now you get to the ramp and you're getting ready to back your boat into the water. The first thing that you always do is leave your front hook of your boat hooked on before you back down the ramp. Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll unhook the back straps of the boat, which hold the back of the boat down, and they'll unhook the front of the boat to make sure that it's easy when it slides off into the water, that they just easily slide off, start their boat, and they're off on their merry way. That's not the way I do it in the wintertime. I always leave my front hooked up, because there's a couple different things that's going to help me with. The first is your bunks underneath your boat have a tendency to freeze in the wintertime, and that makes them like ice skates. What they will do is your boat will slide right off of it as soon as you start to angle down on the ramp, and that's how you see a lot of guys dump their boat on the ramp. So you always leave your front hooked up until you are in the water. That's when you unhook your front, because that will keep your boat safely on your trailer for that period of time. The other thing that helps me with is when I back my boat into the water, this time of year, like we talked about, if you're having any battery issues, you're gonna find it out right away. And so what I will always do is I will start my boat in the water while it's still hooked on the trailer. This will help make sure that it is starting. This will help make sure everything is running. And I can go through my checklist as making sure everything is okay before I pull my trailer out of the water. But before I back down, the first thing you wanna do is you wanna make sure that the ramp has no ice on it. So doing just a preemptive walkthrough down the ramp to make sure everything is okay. And if it's not okay, making sure you have a jug of salt with you to sprinkle on the ramp. Because what I try to do in the wintertime is I try to be the first guy there. Because if I back down first, that means there's nobody else has pulled any water out to let it freeze onto the boat ramp. Now, most northern boat ramps are corrugated to where the water will run into those slots and you'll be okay. But a lot of southern boat ramps are straight flat concrete and can become very, very slippery when exposed to water below 32 degrees. So keeping a bag of salt or a bucket of salt with you in your truck can really be a lifesaver when it comes to making sure the ramp conditions are safe before you back down it. So now we're backing the boat down into the water. You still have it hooked up like we talked about. You back it in, you make sure it starts. Now that comes the time where you need to make sure that motor is gonna warm up for an appropriate amount of time before you try to put it in gear even at all. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna back it in, leave it start, and leave it run. I will put it in the water, make sure my poles are down, and just let that baby warm up for 10 minutes or so. Just making sure the motor is warmed up, everything's functioning as properly as it can, making sure my impeller is working to making sure my motor is peeing, because sometimes the holes on the back of the motor can freeze up. And if that happens, you really just need to make sure it warms up properly. Because if that impeller freezes up and you try to run too fast, your motor will overheat, you'll strip the impeller. Something bad is going to happen if you try to run it too soon. Especially if your gearbox had a little bit of water in it, it was kind of frozen. If you try to go right away, that's going to cause some resistance and you're going to blow your lower unit, which is what we don't want you to do. So leaving your motor warm up an appropriate amount of time, 10-15 minutes, is mandatory this time of year. Now when you go on the water, as you fish throughout a day, your batteries can become stressed just from use, so it's important to keep a jump pack with you in the boat. This is a NOCO jump pack. Most boats, when you buy them brand new now, come with one of these NOCO jump packs because of how well they work. This is just going to be one of those extra safety precautions when I'm out there to make sure that if I'm out there and I have any kind of problems, I will still be able to fire my motor and get it back okay. You can also carry a pair of jumper cables if you have more than one lead acid battery on your boat, but do not jump lithium batteries to lead acid batteries or the other way around, because you will fry one of your batteries. So to avoid all that together, just keep a jump pack in the boat because it will be a lifesaver if your batteries die with that cold weather. So now you're out there fishing, you're moving around, you're trying to get from spot to spot, you're going 65 miles an hour because you want to get there as fast as possible. In the wintertime, don't do that. In the wintertime, I like to run my boat between 4,000 and 5,000 RPMs. I keep it nice and slow. That's like 30 miles an hour to 42 miles an hour at max. There is no reason to be in a hurry to get anywhere, because if you start running your motor as fast as you can during the wintertime, that's also going to lead to some potential problems. So I try to take it nice and slow when I'm out there on the water, because again, it's cold. There's no need to get extra cold. So you're making sure that your motor's still operating at full function, and you're making sure that you're staying as warm as physically possible, because there's nothing worse than fishing in absolute brutal cold as it is. And so trying to stay warm is just a great all-around idea as well. Okay, so now fishing day is over, you're getting back to the ramp. What do? Well, the first thing is you pull up. If you have a dock, that's great. You dock it. Again, check the ramp conditions. When you get to the ramp, do a quick walkthrough. If it's icy again at all, make sure you salt it, give that salt time to work, and then back your truck and your trailer down into the water. Load your boat up. Try not to power load it too much, because again, that's going to be a lot of stress on the motor. So I will back my trailer in a little bit further to make sure that it's okay, and then I can load it a little bit smoother. Hook it up, bring it out. Then you're going to go through all your check-throughs to make sure that your latches aren't going to freeze. You want to make sure that there's no standing water anywhere. And make sure, if you're going to go out again the second day and you're not going to be having your boat in a heated garage or a heated facility and it's going to get below 32 degrees, do not take your plug out. If you take your plug out and you try to put it back in the morning, it will be frozen and it will be impossible to get it back in there, and you'll basically have to try to finger the hole on the back to try to warm it up, or try to do something, pour hot coffee down there. I've seen all kinds of different things guys have tried to do because they pulled their plug out and then they try to get it back in and it's frozen and they can't. So leave your plug in if you're planning on going out a second time in a row and you're leaving your boat out. The next thing is, normally guys just mount their motor, call it a day. Well, what you want to do is you want to fire your motor to blow all the water out of the internals of your motor. So all you do is you turn it over, fire it once, let that motor turn over. You'll see the water blow out, shut it off immediately. That will keep your impeller from freezing again if you're leaving your boat out at night. And it will also just be a good way to avoid any rust that's going to get into the internals of your motor as it is from that water sitting. Now, another good thing to do is when you get your boat back, make sure to cover it. You want to make sure to cover it, because what that's going to do is that's going to keep any extra frost off of your boat, and it's just going to help keep your boat a little bit warmer inside as it is anyway. Like I said, guys, going out in the wintertime is a fantastic thing to do. If you want to see some of my favorite baits for fishing in the wintertime, be sure to check this video out up here. But now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the good word of the Lord to end with this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to stick around for some of my favorite passages from the Bible, be sure to stick around. But if you just want to see another fishing video, like I said, guys, check this video out up here. Now let's dive into it. So to end this video, guys, with it being around the holiday season is a great and it's a very festive and fun time of year, but it can also be a tough time of year if you're dealing with the loss of a loved one, or if you just miss some of the loved ones that you might have lost throughout the rest of the year. So to end the video, I'm going to bring up John 16:22, because I feel like it's a very comforting passage. And what it says is, "So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you." And that gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that I will see my loved ones again. You know, this is just our temporary home, guys. We're not going to be here forever. Every single one of us is going to pass. But if you give your life to Jesus, you trust him, and you believe in him, then you're going to see your loved ones again in a better place anyway. You know, there's an eternal life after this, that you will be able to be with those ones for eternity. And so that's the only thing that can really give you solace and give you comfort through this time of year if you're dealing with the loss of a loved one or missing someone from your family. So thank you guys so much for watching. God bless every single one of you guys. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button to follow along for more content. But thank you guys for watching again, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.